It's been 2 years since the best Nintendo Switch JRPG has launched, and yes, I am talking about Xenoblade Chronicles 3. 1 year plus since the DLC Future Redeemed, which we'll get into in a bit, but 2 years since the original launch of the game, when it was moved up from its previous September slot or so, all the way up to July. So in this video, I wanted to kind of just break down my full thoughts 2 years later on the anniversary, or right around the anniversary of Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Now, I did have a video recently talking about what they can do next, and I discussed some of the things that were in Xenoblade 3 and other games. If you haven't seen that, check it out. But this one is going to be my full thoughts on the game. Now that I've put 200 plus hours into it, I've had a chance to reflect, I've had a chance to really go back and look, play Future Redeemed, everything kind of all together into one. And we can discuss it in terms of what it meant for Monolith Soft, what it means for the Xenoblade series, and what it means for the company going forward. But if you missed those videos, where I had a huge review on it, you can check it out. I'll have everything linked in the description, but I'll also be going over many of those thoughts that I had before, updated now in this video. But before we get into anything, what's good everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch RPG videos, and of course my Xenoblade content as soon as it drops. Now let's go ahead and just jump right into this, but full disclaimer here guys, everybody has their opinion on what's the best. I'm sure many of you guys feel very differently about what RPG is the best and what's good or what's not, so you can put all of that in the comment section below. I'll be more than happy to go through. We have polls that you can vote on the channel as well, talk about what your favorite RPGs are, so everyone's opinion is of course allowed here. But I'm just going over my thoughts on Xenoblade Chronicles 3 2 years later at this point. So this game is very personal for me, just because to me it came at a time, especially after I had a lot of difficult things that were happening. Now, nothing was, oh my gosh, like the sky's falling or anything like that, but there was definitely personal things that was going on, and Xenoblade Chronicles 3 put immense happiness into my life that no other game could do at that time. So I was very happy when the game did launch. It's really hot here during the summers, and one thing that's just so fun to do is just to blast the AC, sit down in a comfortable recliner or a couch or whatever the case is, and play some Xenoblade Chronicles 3, or simply play the game portable mode. I have my Nintendo Switch OLED, I would lay down on my bed, and I'd sit down and I'd play Xenoblade Chronicles 3 at night after I was done with editing and streaming and work, and it was just phenomenal. It just really put a smile on my face, and those are some of the things that I remember the most about Xenoblade Chronicles 2 2 years later, is thinking, man, this game is super fun, and it's not like anything else on the market. And I think that's what sets Xenoblade Chronicles apart. It's not everyone's cup of tea, but it doesn't need to be everyone's cup of tea. It's built this legacy and this aura, and I would just say this position in the market that no matter what, you're going to have this dedicated base of people that just absolutely love what they're doing, because Monolith Soft creates games specifically for the fans of their craft and style. They have a certain style, a certain flavor, ability that no other developers, in my opinion, have in the market. I think Falcom, sometimes Legend of Heroes series, you can see it in there. You can see it in some of the other RPGs out there, Team Asano. But for me, they're the only ones that can create an RPG like this when it comes to the gameplay, the graphics, the story, the world. Everything just kind of comes together, and being able to intertwine and weave literally thousands upon thousands of years of lore overall with the Xeno series, in addition to hundreds or however many years with the Xenoblade series in general, is just a sight to behold, because they were able to do that with Xenoblade Chronicles 3. So many subtle nods, so many different things from past games, from previous series that were intertwined into the experience of Xenoblade Chronicles 3. It's incredible that they were able to pull it off without too many retcons and issues. There's definitely some, and there's some little ones and a little bit bigger ones, but overall they were able to get it done over the course of decades at this point, and it just brings once again a smile to my face to look back at this game 2 years from now, but then also kind of admire what they were able to accomplish. Now, if you look at the launch and lead up to this game, I thought it was pretty special, because Nintendo really had to adjust, because I think that maybe it was market analysis or research. They said, you know what, it'd probably be better if you launch Xenoblade Chronicles 3 first before you launch Splatoon. If you launch Splatoon, people are still going to be playing that. It might overshadow it. So they decided to say, okay, let's give them Xenoblade Chronicles 3 a number of months earlier compared to the September, which it was supposed to come out. So essentially what happened, like I stated, it was the Splatoon 3 and Xenoblade Chronicles 3 swap. Those two games swap places, which was awesome because remember, those two games also launched with the Nintendo Switch with the first year at least, right? So same thing happened here, both in the same year, but they swapped this time, whereas Xenoblade Chronicles came out a bit before and then Splatoon came out a bit after, whereas before in 2017, it was Splatoon 2 that came out early and then Xenoblade Chronicles 2 that came out later. So it was kind of cool to see the switch up on that and how these two games are kind of connected in terms of development time and period. But the launch and lead up to Xenoblade Chronicles 3 was awesome. I loved it. There was the video that I freaked out on, which you guys can go check out. It's pretty crazy. Xenoblade! Oh, Xenoblade!
It's the way of our world.
Xenoblade!
Ionios.
Oh! And then after that, there was the video that had the release date where they changed it, which that was also pretty crazy. Woo! Woo, baby, let's go. So we know it's September, baby. Let's go. What's the actual date, though? September? Oh, what? Wait, that's not. Whoa, that's not September. That's July. Wait, hold on. Oh, special edition. And then they had the Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Direct, which was also really good. It was very long, it was very complicated, it definitely turned some people off, but for a lot of people, when it came to the Nintendo Switch, there wasn't really a ton of other games to play right around in the proximity of that game, so they ended up giving it a shot, and Xenoblade Chronicles 3 started out to its best launch ever for any Xenoblade game. Now, sales have tapered down just a bit, but I do feel that things will pick back up. If you get it on the Nintendo Switch 2 and 1080p 60 frames per second, oh, trust me, you do a trilogy release with Xenoblade 1, Xenoblade 2, and Xenoblade 3, all 1080p 60 frames, you put that on one cartridge somehow or one download, woo! Watch those sales just shoot up. But especially for Xenoblade 3, as more and more people actually play the game, I've been messaged a lot by so many people on YouTube and Twitter telling me, hey, you're the one who got me into Xenoblade. I finally picked up Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and it's awesome. I played 1, I played 2, but 3 really hit me in a certain type of way. And I've had it the other way around when it comes to Xenoblade 1 or Xenoblade 2. People saying, you know what, I love 3, but man, 1 was really this or 2 was really that. So I think that's what makes the series special. They all have a very similar style and feel, but also very different, to where you're going to get a lot of people saying, no, 1's the best, no, 2's the best, no, 3's the best. And it's going to be mixed when it comes to what the fans think overall. There is no consensus. That's what I love about this series. And I think that Xenoblade 3 really gives so many people things to look at overall on what it did and how different it was. And the launch and the lead up and the hype and them explaining that was just so cool with the Nintendo Direct, the Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Nintendo Direct that they had, which was all about the game. And it just showed off the combat, showed off the story, showed off the open world, quality of life features, showed off so many different things, different classes, the heroes, so many things that was not known beforehand. So heading into it, we're like, okay, we pretty much know everything. But then Nintendo was like, oh, you think you know everything? Because once you actually got into playing the game, once you actually saw it on your screen, running and everything, a couple different things really stood out to me. Let's just talk about the actual launch and then like the graphics, then we'll talk about the gameplay, story and stuff like that. But just the graphics itself, when you go back and you look at Xenoblade Chronicles 3, if you're looking at the Nintendo Switch itself and you're thinking to yourself like, man, what other developer was able to do what they were able to do on the system with what they were pushing, right? If you look at it, yes, it's not the most graphically impressive in terms of just looking at the game, but if you look at the scope and scale of it, how massive the open world is. And it's a huge open world with relatively short loading times. But on top of that, you've got a full day-night cycle in the game. You've got water physics. You've got all sorts of stuff that you can do in the open world. You've got a bunch of enemies just roaming around. And the look and the art style, which all plays into the graphics, was just kind of breathtaking for a Nintendo Switch game. And if you look at it stylistically, it still looks better than a lot of games released on more powerful systems. And they do things, once again, that's not always done on other systems as well. The graphics and being able to hold up, even though it was kind of by a thread at times because that dynamic resolution would be shifting, but to have 7 people on screen all fighting at the same time, that you can switch between 6 of them at any point. just at any point you could just switch between them and start fighting, plus a bunch of enemies on screen with all sorts of effects and attacks happening and people yelling things, and for the frame rate not to buckle completely and the graphics to completely tank in every single scenario was just a, I would say, brilliant stroke of engineering with their engine and what Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is. So I think that's the most impressive thing about the game from a graphic standpoint, because you got to remember, Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and Xenoblade Chronicles 2 absolutely did not have that overall. There was a lot more issues visually with those games and even with performance with those games on the original launches for them, with Xenoblade 1 on the Wii, and then even Definitive Edition to an extent. They fixed some things, but still with some of the resolution and the clarity of the game. Xenoblade Chronicles 2, it was well documented the issues with that game when it comes to frame rate in certain places, memory leaks, certain stuff like that. But with Xenoblade Chronicles 3, although not perfect, definitely the best that they've done with that engine, as they were refining it and was able to put in their own custom like FSR or upscaler to make it look so much better, especially in portable mode. And to me, that's where Xenoblade Chronicles 3 just blows away the other games. Just the look of it in portable mode, despite it not running in a super high resolution, it looks way more clear than what Xenoblade Chronicles 1 Definitive Edition was able to offer, and Xenoblade Chronicles 2 on the Nintendo Switch. And if you're playing on an OLED, it looks great and it performs well enough, and it actually looks better sometimes, especially when things get crazy on screen. Although the display is smaller, I do feel that it doesn't look as bad when the resolution drops, when the dynamic resolution hits. So for me, overall, the graphics in Xenoblade Chronicles 3 was pretty much maximized to what the Switch could do for the type of game that they were trying to make. There's a lot of Xbox and PlayStation games that don't do 7 people all on screen in a single player RPG, all fighting at the same time with all sorts of stuff. And yes, way higher fidelity with the graphics. They're doing different things. I'm pretty sure obviously they can do something like that. But to see it on the Nintendo Switch, I think it was pretty wild at the time. And still to this point, there are no other games on the Nintendo Switch that were able to pack that much stuff into an open world RPG all at the same time, being able to switch anytime that you want. There's just no other game like that. So you have to give Xenoblade Chronicles 3 props for its effects and its graphics and its art and its world. It's just beautiful, and that's just how I feel 2 years later. It's one of the things that just sticks out to where I have to talk about it first overall. But next, what's important is the gameplay. Gameplay is always going to be the most important, and this is where a lot of people, I guess, will have some differences of opinion. Story too, in terms of what's best or not, but I think that gameplay was the biggest thing because of the changes from the chain attacks compared to Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and I did like the chain attacks in Xenoblade Chronicles 3. The only issue was that music, man. Like, that music, it still stands out, and this was something that people asked for, and even with the Future Redeemed DLC, which we will talk about in a bit, even with that, they didn't change it. They should have done at least a couple different variations of the chain attack music. And the gameplay is great, but I've said this before in previous videos and previous stuff with RPGs, like, if the music isn't great or if it's repetitive, it can definitely put a little bit of a damper overall on how you feel about something, even if that aspect is great. The chain attack stuff in Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is really good, and it's even better in Future Redeemed, how they did the combos, the fusion stuff and all that. That stuff is just incredible. But in Xenoblade Chronicles 3, that chain attack music, man, if you could just change it, or if there was some more variations of it, it would have been so much better. But I do feel that if you look at it overall, it's not just about chain attacking, right? You do have your regular attacks, you do have the Urobudos, you do have your different skills that you can activate. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 activates this primal instinct in me, the RPG nut in me, to just say, wow, look at all these buttons, look at all these doodads, look at all these different things I can flip and switch and press and do, and combinations that I can pick in order to just obliterate everything that's on screen when it comes to your item combinations, when it comes to the different classes or heroes that you can pick, when it comes to the different skills and abilities that you get. It's just such a wide playground of variety and flavor. It's something that not everyone's gonna love. Not everybody loves having your pick at every single little thing. Some people like to be able just to eat one thing, but in this case, being able to really have like this plate of awesome different things that you can do with the Uroboros, which was awesome, and leveling that up completely separate when it comes to skills and all that from your regular classes and from what you can do at the beginning. It was just awesome. I love that about Xenoblade Chronicles 3. The gameplay was almost therapeutic in a sense because you're not just constantly sitting there spamming the button like a normal action RPG, which is fine. It works for many action RPGs out there, but to me that gets so repetitive at times, and sometimes why I don't play some of the bigger mainstream action RPGs. At least I don't like them as much as Xeno, because Xenoblade has this therapeutic gameplay where when you get into a battle, okay, it's hitting, it's auto attacking, you're waiting for certain things to fill up, you're waiting for something to happen, then boom, you execute it at the time. So you get this feeling of, oh, okay, got him, and like you're managing something along with striking when the iron's hot. And it really fills up, like I said, these levers and gears and these shifts. It just feels like you're flying a complicated plane, but at the same time, it's a very graceful one. And that's just how I feel about the gameplay in Xenoblade Chronicles, because there's so many different things, but when it all clicks, it really clicks. It's like a snap right there. You can feel it when it comes to gameplay. Not everybody gets there, but for me and for many of you guys that are watching this video, you probably had that same feeling when it finally clicked after like what, the 20-30 hour tutorial, and then looking through, then seeing every single little thing. You're like, okay, yeah, this is how you get it done. This is how you efficiently do this. Okay, I need to customize this type of way and unlock these type of skills with this character and change up my class. So it was awesome that way. And the progression overall, the gameplay flow and progression was just beautiful. It was just a sight to behold, and I still think about some of the areas and locations that you went to and things that unlock afterwards and think to myself, oh man, that was great. Like, that was so good. So gameplay wise, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 to me is my favorite in the series, if we're counting the Future Redeemed DLC, because to me that takes it to the next step. And I understand for those who say, oh, but Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and some of the stuff there, blades and all that, I completely get it. But having the complete control in order to switch your character whenever you want in and out of battle, and the beautiful open world that ties directly into the gameplay without all of the annoying things that stop you from progressing in Xenoblade Chronicles 2's open world or open-ended areas with some of the events on the maps. I feel that Xenoblade Chronicles 3 really just set things up so much better. You had all the quality of life features for gameplay built into the game from the beginning, with a few exceptions here and there, but for the most part, it was all set when it comes to the map. You had no issues there. It was all very easy to follow and go through. So Xenoblade Chronicles 3 gameplay overall was just special. You pair that with the graphics and you just got a match made in heaven overall for the game. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is also a masterclass in soundtrack with over 100 tracks in the game, from heart-pumping, adrenaline-filled tracks to slow and somber to even lyrics. It seems like they dialed up the right music, the right instrument, and just the right flow whenever they needed to. I think it's pretty safe to say, at least for me, that Xenoblade Chronicles 3 has one of the greatest soundtracks of all time, and it doesn't get enough love from outside. But people that know RPGs know that Xenoblade Chronicles 3 absolutely killed it in terms of what it was able to accomplish, and all of the people that composed the music and did everything should be so proud of themselves, because this game's soundtrack is phenomenal, one of the greatest of all time in my opinion. Now let's talk about the story, because this is where most people will say that have played through say that, okay, this is great. You pair that with Future Redeemed, the DLC, and the story is just phenomenal. I love the fact that, yes, you don't have to play Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and 2. I mean, I highly recommend that you do. But if you've played Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and 2, and if you understand what happened in 1 and 2, and we're talking 1, 2, plus the DLC, so that's Future Connected, or you understand, or you watch the video or whatever, plus Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Torn of the Golden Country, if you've played all of that and understand the lore and what's going on, the hype and anticipation leading into 3 and the story overall is mind-blowing. And that's where you kind of look at Takahashi and Monolith Soft and say, okay, these guys are geniuses. Because once again, I kind of alluded to it before, but how they were able to intertwine and tangle thousands of years and decades of their games, from all of the Xeno games to this game here with Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and Future Redeemed, was just brilliant. it really takes very intelligent and talented people in order to do this. I have trouble intertwining words for a singular video. These people were able to do it over decades with multiple different games and been able to connect everything, and they're able to do it within budget and within reason and time. It's just special, and the story in Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is so good. I love the dual protagonists with Noah and Mio, the 3 and 3, how they come from different races and different types. And I think that the setup of the 10 years and the endless now with Mobius and having that type of enemy, although not as animated as some of the previous ones where they're like, okay, maybe those ones like Malos and Jin and something like that. But to me, it really represents, like what Takahashi said, it represents all what's bad about mankind, and that is the story setup in Xenoblade Chronicles 3. That's what it's about when it comes to these two planets, Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and what happens and how Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Ionios is formed and the situation that they have. It's just incredible how it all played out and how they intertwined the previous characters. It's like great fan service, but at the same time, brilliant interjection in order to really tell a certain type of story, and not only tell that story for Xenoblade Chronicles 3, but also for the future and what they're going to do later. So for me, it was awesome. I don't want to have any type of massive spoilers, so I'm not going to be going over very specific things and breaking it all down one by one, because there are still people that want to play the game, and maybe this will hype them in order to play the game. But I will say that there are hard-hitting emotional scenes where, man, it got me very close to tearing up, man. It was close with some of them, some of the scenes that happen, especially with Noah and En and Neo and what happens there. Also having Melia and Nia as well. Those are things that I really just can't describe how awesome it is. And I'm really just trying to describe everything that just makes Xenoblade Chronicles 3 so awesome. But if you combine everything here, the graphics, the gameplay, the story, the progression, the DLC with Future Redeemed, this is it. This is why it's the best. And these are my thoughts. Now, once again, not a perfect game, not perfect on the graphics, not perfect on all of the pacing with the story, not perfect with everything in the game. But I will say, if you're talking about the game itself and how it was compared to the previous ones and the side quests in the game, this ties into the story and the gameplay. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 pretty much does it the best out of any RPG that I've played, maybe ever that I've played overall, because those side quests were awesome and it tied in so well to the story and to certain characters. I was blown away by the quality of it, and the same goes for the Future Redeemed DLC. It was obviously awesome to see Rex and Shulk come back, but how their stories play out and how they tie that into everything is just brilliant overall. So 2 years later, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is still one of the best. To me, it's the GOAT of Nintendo Switch JRPGs, and I'm so happy this game came out when it did, and it has the history and legacy that it has, and Xenoblade's never been stronger overall when it comes to it. Monolith Soft has never been stronger, and Xenoblade Chronicles 3 was a huge part of that. But what are your thoughts about Xenoblade Chronicles 3 2 years later? What are some of your favorite moments from the game? What do you think is going to happen in the future? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out our other Nintendo Switch and RPG videos right here on screen. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.